It's a great honor to welcome to G Sport Babalwa Latsha. She's the captain of the Springbok women's 15th team, and for me, one of the great ambassadors of South African women's sport. It's good to have you, and we've been wanting to do this interview for a while. You've been busy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to see you and to be with you today.
Women's rugby is growing. It's going really well, and you are at the forefront of the change. How does it feel to be part of this journey?
It's quite amazing, actually. When we look at our history as Springbok women, we've been quiet for quite some time, and I think that this period is the perfect time for us to, get back on the bandwagon, get back on the international, scene, and, we are here to stay, really.
When you look at how far you've come in rugby, where did it all start for you, and when did you realize that rugby was the way forward for you?
The funny thing is, we're actually at the place where it started.
Wow.
It seriously started here at UWC for me. I've had a bit of an encounter with rugby in Khayelitsha, where I am from. But then when I started my first year here at the University of the Western Cape, everything just fell into place. I fell in love more with the sport. I was more exposed to it, and I decided to take it up seriously. Fast forward 5 years later, we're here.
I think it's incredible because 2019 has been almost a breakout year for women's rugby. Where do you think the change came, where not just SARU, but South Africans started taking women's rugby seriously?
I think our turning point was when we qualified for the World Cup, really. I think from there was quite, we've managed to gather a bit of momentum. From that, I think, it was long overdue, really, because, South Africa has been playing rugby. Women's rugby has been there, but it's just, just under the carpet. No one spoke about it. But now that all of a sudden, boom, 2019, we qualified for the World Cup. Things are starting to, to be more on an upward trajectory, if you like.
And you need sponsors, though, because all the enthusiasm in the world is not going to get you the place that you need to be. Why has it been so tough, do you think, for not just women's rugby, but women's sport to attract sponsors?
I think, sponsors are obviously quite important to any sport, really, more important for women's sport. I think, there are various issues that are, within our systems that are not really conducive of attracting sponsorships. I think that needs to change quite quickly, actually, because it doesn't make sense why anyone would not want to back such a fast-growing sport, So I think that sponsors should seriously start thinking about sponsoring women's sport in general.
I think internationally is probably a good place to play as well as a player. I know there were many eyes looking at you over the past couple of months. Is that a dream for you, to be able to go, take everything that you've learned and ply your trade internationally?
Of course, it's a great dream of mine. I think that, it's also my responsibility, as the captain of the Springbok women, to fly the South African national flag as high as possible. And I think that the perfect place to do that is actually in the, the international arena. There's no reason why anyone, including myself, cannot do that. I think that it's high time that the rest of the world started looking at South Africa, started looking at South African women's rugby and taking it quite seriously.
Which country do you think internationally is doing the best for women's rugby?
In my opinion, I think that New Zealand and England, they're doing quite well. They're actually doing them justice, to say the least. Of course, there are 4 or 5-time world champions. That also counts in their favor. But I feel like we shouldn't really need to win 5 championships before people, or the relevant people, really start, taking the sport seriously. And I think that England and New Zealand are, they've sort of set the mark for the rest of the world. And I think that, South Africa can follow suit.
I like the fact that you never complain. You always find the positive things to say about women's rugby. How have you managed to keep your spirit up, despite the fact that support hasn't been as forthcoming?
To be quite honest with you, the sport of rugby, of women's rugby in particular, in our country can be quite devastating for a player. It could kill your dreams, if I may put it that way. But the key thing that drives us, I think I'm speaking for everyone else who plays rugby, is the passion. We love the sport, but unfortunately, the passion, the love alone is not going to cut it. We need to be supported. We must be supported, actually, financially and in all other ways possible. So I think that, one just needs to keep their goals in mind, with the passion, of course. But I think a clear example of what I'm talking about is the Sevens and the Sasquatch issue. I mean, if you're a player, you aspire to play at the highest level possible, and all of a sudden you're told that no, you can't. You know what I mean? So can be quite heartbreaking. But I think the most important thing, like I said, is just keep a clear mind, keep your goals in mind, and and let that passion drive the passion drive you into the sport.
I read recently that you won the Chester Williams Award here at UWC. I saw your Facebook update. That was a special moment, wasn't it?
Oh, extremely special. I mean, geez, in my view, I think that, Mr. Chester Williams was, he was more than a star. He was a legend, actually. He's known the world over. I've had 1 or 2 encounters with him, and what a gentleman. What a gentleman. I think it's a real loss to South Africa. It's a real loss to rugby, and even more so to UWC.
We're chatting to the Springbok women's captain, Babalwa Latsha, and recently she was honoured with the Chester Williams Award here at UWC. What a special award from a man who was just so special to South African rugby.
Of course, it's extremely special, the greatest honour of all. I think the world knows who Chester Williams was, and the role that he played within our sport and our country, in unifying the country, and sort of giving us a new hope, a lot like what Siya Kolisi did. So I felt really, really special, and it was a great honour, really.
Let's talk about that Rugby World Cup win, because I think it should impact every level of rugby, including women's rugby.
Well, we would hope that that would be the case, but is it really? I mean, that's a question that time will tell. But it's a great achievement, fantastic achievement for the country as a whole, for the world, and for me personally, for every young kid who has ever aspired to play rugby or any sport at the highest possible level, and not even to mention what he has done for unifying the country. Words can hardly put it, into context, really, what the impact was of the feat.
Yeah, 2019 special for rugby, but let's talk about the decade ahead, because you have an opportunity as Babalwa to really impact not just women's rugby in South Africa, I think world rugby. What are your hopes and dreams?
My greatest hopes and dreams for the next decade or so is to be able to represent the South African brand of rugby to the rest of the world. I think it's also part of my responsibility, really, as a leader, as a pioneer, as the captain of the Springbok women, to sort of, be at the forefront of doing that. And I think that I'm well on my way in doing it. It has to be done, really. So I would love to represent my country internationally, and to showcase South African women's rugby to the rest of the world. And I think that it's high time that I started sitting up and paying attention to the Springbok women.
I think so. And what about young girls who want to play rugby? Because we know football is getting very popular, cricket, netball's there, but rugby really needs a push forward. What would you say to young girls who want to take up the sport?
Definitely, I think that they should go for it. For me personally, rugby has liberated me in so many ways. Personally, I've sort of found my voice within rugby. I've went on a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
So I think that is quite important for any growing young girl, and more importantly, it's fun.
It's fun.
Great fun. So I think that any young girl should definitely try the sport.
You are a sponsor's dream. There is no doubt about it. What is your message to sponsors about why they should back you?
Geez, I think the most obvious thing is that I'm in a position of leadership. That on its own should just, instantly attract some kind of a sponsor. I think that for me personally, I've almost taken it upon myself to be the voice of South African women's rugby, and I think that I'm doing that quite well. Especially now that we're going to the World Cup, all eyes are going to be on us. Well, I would like to think so. So we definitely need a whole lot of backing in the form of sponsors.
Well, I can tell you what, if I was a sponsor, I'd be backing her. There's an incredible year coming up for women's rugby ahead of that 2021 Rugby World Cup. And who knows, she may just emulate Siya Kolisi, and that will champion women's rugby forward. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure having stars like Babalwa chatting to us here on G Sport.